3, 2, 1, start. The dispute in the present case arises out of an agreement to sell executed between the plaintiff and the defendant in respect of a residential property situated within the municipal limits of the city. According to the plaintiff, the defendant had agreed to sell the property for a total consideration of rupees 40 lakh and had received a substantial amount as earnest money at the time of execution of the agreement. The remaining sale consideration was to be paid at the time of registration of the sale deed. The plaintiff alleged that he was always ready and willing to perform his part of the contract and had repeatedly requested the defendant to complete the transaction. However, the defendant avoided execution of the sale deed on one pretext or another. A legal notice was thereafter served upon the defendant calling upon him to appear before the sub registrar on the date fixed for registration. The plaintiff claimed that he remained present in the office of the sub registrar with the necessary funds, but the defendant failed to appear. Consequently, the plaintiff instituted a suit seeking specific performance of the agreement on sale. In the alternative, he prayed for refund of the earnest money along with interest and compensation. The defendant contested the suit and denied having entered into any genuine agreement for sale of the property. It was pleaded that the document relied upon by the plaintiff had been obtained by misrepresentation, that the transaction between the parties was in fact a loan transaction. The trial court framed appropriate issues on the basis of the pleadings and permitted both parties to lead evidence. The plaintiff examined the attesting witnesses to the agreement and produced documentary evidence regarding his presence before the sub registrar. The defendant entered the witness box and reiterated the stand taken in the written statement. After appreciating the evidence, the trial court held that execution of the agreement had been duly proved and that the plaintiff had established his readiness and willingness to perform the contractual obligations. The defendant challenged the judgment by filing an appeal. It was argued that mere possession of funds could not establish continuous readiness and willingness, and that the trial court had failed to consider material contradictions in the testimony of the witnesses. The plaintiff, on the other hand, submitted that the conduct of the parties, the legal notice, and the documentary evidence clearly demonstrate his intention to complete the sale. The appellate court observed that the relief of specific performance is governed by settled principles and must be considered in the light of the terms of the contract and the conduct of the parties. A person seeking such relief is required to establish that he has performed or has always been ready and willing to perform the essential terms of the agreement which were required to be performed by him. The court further observed that readiness relates primarily to the financial capacity of the purchaser, whereas willingness is reflected through his conduct before and after the institution of proceedings. No single circumstance can be treated as conclusive, and the entire evidence must be considered together. In the present case, the plaintiff had issued a timely notice, appeared before the competent authority, and subsequently approached the court without unreasonable delay. The defendant failed to produce convincing evidence in support of the alleged loan transaction. The appellate court therefore found no sufficient ground to interfere with the findings recorded by the trial court and dismissed the appeal while directing the parties to complete the necessary formalities within the period prescribed by the court. No costs awarded. Stop.